Hey, Gloomhaven fans, we are now down to the last 24 hours of the Gloomhaven Grand Festival, and I thought I would do a kind of final recap video on the campaign, on what I'm actually pledging for here, so you guys can get a sense of what I think is pretty good value, or what's interesting, or the most interesting as part of this campaign, and we can do a final breakdown really on the campaign itself, what you might want to go for, what you might not want to go for, and yeah, just get a general sense of it, as a lot of people will be making their minds up as to what they actually want to go for or pledge for right now in the next 24 hours. So let's check it out. Before we get started, a big thank you to all of my supporters over on Patreon and on Twitch, with the Patreon people coming up on screen now. A big thank you to my legendary supporters Mike, Kira, Obi-Wan Kanti and Shao Quinn. Thank you guys for the support, I really appreciate it. If you would like to help support me and the channel, then you can head over to twitch.tv/ManageRequest and drop a sub over there, or you can go over to patreon.com/ManageRequest and become a Patreon member for some early access to some videos and some behind the scenes stuff. Briefly, I just want to reiterate here that everything in this Backy Kit campaign is coming to retail in some form. There shouldn't really be any kind of FOMO here, except for the bit of discount that you're going to get from getting this from Cephalofair Direct. Now, what I will say is that what Cephalofair usually quote as their RRP, and then the price that you pay, I've actually found that for a lot of times, the actual price ends up being quite a bit higher. There's not been a single Cephalofair Games Kickstarter that I've done, and now we're on Backy Kit for the first time. There's not a single one that I have done where I have, you know, quote unquote, lost money because the retail version has ended up being cheaper. Every single time at the time, and at least for a decent period of time afterwards as well, the product has been actually worth more on the secondary market, or it's been harder to get hold of. It's, you know, no one's stocking it. It's out of stock everywhere. So everything in here is coming to retail. So if you are somebody who does have the patience and isn't in a rush, and doesn't mind maybe spending a little bit more and getting it later on, then absolutely you will be able to do that. But if you do want to get a little bit of a saving and of course secure it for yourself, so you know when you're going to get it and that you definitely will get it, then obviously backing is going to be for you. So let's start really at the pledge levels here, and the pledge levels that you can go for. This is where it is relatively easy to kind of navigate what kind of thing that you are into. Personally, at the moment, I am backed under the Slayer Bug Pledge Manager Access option, and I will probably remain here, actually, and let this kind of roll out to the Pledge Manager. What this means is that for a buck, I have managed to secure my place in the Pledge Manager, so that when this project comes to kind of completion at a certain point down the line, we'll get an invite to the Pledge Manager, and this is where you have the opportunity to add different things, and then whatever the monetary value that you've already pledged kind of comes off of your costs, if you like. So you get to kind of tossle up your kind of cart, get everything that you want in there, everything that you might want to add, then it will deduct what you have already spent or you've already pledged, because that money would have been taken when the campaign closes. So for me, that will just be $1. But at that point in time, you have the option to add on anything else or maybe change your pledge in different ways. So it's a very safe option to go for if you think you probably want something, but at this time you don't really know exactly what. And I know that I'm going to want to probably mix and match a lot of add-ons and different things here. So to me, it makes a lot of sense to just sort of stick with this for now until the Pledge Manager comes out and I can properly understand what I want. So that's what the Slayer Bug Pledge Manager is, and that's what I'm under as well. And I do recommend, you know, for people to go for that option if you are currently unsure as to what it is that you want, or if you, for example, don't want to spend any money within the next 24 hours when this thing closes, because pledges will be collected before the Pledge Manager opens, so worth bearing in mind. Next, you have Buttons and Bugs. I think that this is a great option. You can see that 12,000 people have gone for this already. I think that it's a massive surprise hit, I think, for Cephalofair. I mean, maybe they knew it was going to be such a big hit, but I think it's very surprising that actually what was added to the whole campaign, I think a little more than a week ago, as I record this, has now become the highest pledged item in the campaign in its entirety, which says a lot maybe about what else is included here, but it's also the lowest cost thing here. So a lot of people who maybe came on originally and thought, nah, there's nothing here for me in terms of what I would like to spend, Buttons and Bugs is a very low entry point for cost, so that could have a big bearing on it as well. But you got all the different pledge managers options here. Really here, you're going to lead with maybe whatever product that you really want to get. If you really want to get second edition, then it's not a bad idea to come over here and get this. If you want the RPG, it's not a bad idea to come over here to do this. Realistically, I would lead with the main product that you are interested in here. If you are interested in the big bundles with all the miniatures and things, then go for that. Kind of go for what is your kind of like main thing that you want to get out of this campaign, if you're happy to pay that money within the the next few days when the campaign closes. So that is kind of what I would do. Otherwise, go for the pledge manager like I have done. Now, personally, what I'm going to be going for is all going to be down to these add-ons here, really. So what are the things that I'm most excited about? So Buttons and Bugs, absolutely. I think that this is looking like a really, really fun little game. Really interesting side project. I am 100% adding this on. It's only $15. It is $20, I believe, when it goes to retail. The only thing I will say with Buttons and Bugs is, to me, the shipping and the taxes might make it a little bit more expensive than retail when you're all said and done. Plus, to be honest, the very nature of it being quite a small campaign solo game that can potentially be played very quickly, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw this in shops or on secondhand pages, kind of all over the place within the, after the kind of grace period of when it gets delivered. And as Buttons and Bugs is part of Wave 2, which means that it's aimed to be delivered this year, actually in November, you may actually start to see this hit retail maybe in the early part of spring next year, and second-hand copies or people who have decided they no longer want it might start even popping up towards the end of this year. So worth keeping an eye on. But if it are something that you are interested in going for, then it's kind of like a no-brainer to add it here, really, if you're already in on the campaign for sure. I'll also be going for the deluxe RPG box set. Not because I have many massive aspirations of playing the RPG myself. I do have a group that's kind of semi-interested in starting up an RPG, and this could be a really good entry point because there's the mechanics are a little bit more on rails. It feels like there's, it's a little bit more of a beginner RPG system that they've got going on here. And also because I love Gloomhaven, and several of the people who may be included in that role-playing group are also Gloomhaven players, or were part of my original Gloomhaven group. I feel like this could be a really good entry point for me. And considering that you can't really do much without all of the cards and everything, to me, monetarily, it made more sense to just go for the deluxe box set, which has everything in it. And also, I'm a bit of a Gloomhaven collector, right? So I like to kind of have a bit of everything. So that'll be also something that I'll go for. Gloomhaven 2nd Edition, if you've been paying attention to my channel, if you've been watching my videos, my class reviews, but also my gameplay sessions with Gripe Away, I have really kind of embraced 2nd Edition now. I think they've done a really great job over the course of this campaign, really demonstrating to everybody the breadth of the changes, the depth of everything that's going on here, and justifying why they wanted to do it. I thought it was a rough start to begin with. They were certainly trying to claw back, I think, the community's kind of good graces for a while. But I think over the course of this campaign, they've actually done a really excellent job of answering the questions, really showcasing why it needed to exist, and really kind of showing everybody that this is going to be a really good welcome edition, and it's something that you may really enjoy. So for me, 2nd Edition is an absolute no-brainer, and I'm very much looking forward to receiving it. Hopefully some point next year is when this is going to be delivered, so I'm kind of interested in that. Similar with the RPG, similar kind of timeframes. Both of these are to be delivered in about a year or so. That's the current timelines. Other things that we have here: removable sticker set, again, a no-brainer add-on if you do plan on playing the game more than once, which I probably will, as long as a 3rd edition doesn't exist at some point. I feel like I will probably end up wanting to play through 2nd edition a few times, so this kind of makes sense to me. Solo scenarios as well, absolute no-brainer. I encourage everybody to add solo scenarios if you are at all considering the 2nd edition. Get the solo scenarios from this, because again, it's some really nice content and a few items. It does really improve the itemization of all of the characters in the game. So I really recommend always adding the solo scenarios for whatever game that you're looking at. Obviously, the class upgrade pack, I think this was something that I called for, and lots of other people did as well. The community kind of asked the questions and demanded it, and people have now gone for it. But I do think that the price on this is what kind of, to me, made it kind of like I'm going to go for the second edition, right? If this class upgrade pack was maybe priced a little bit more competitively to this comparatively, I think I would probably maybe go for this. But then with all of the changes, and of course Gloomhaven being such a big part of my channel and what I like to do, and it's my favorite game, you know, I was probably kidding myself there. I was going to ultimately probably end up getting the full second edition, but I think it was very important to argue the point and to rally around people who did want an option to at least get some of the new mercenary stuff. And it's glad that it's been added, but yeah, for me it didn't really end up being something I wanted. I've never really agreed with the map tile archive stuff. To me, I have my own way of organizing things. You know, whenever I play one of these games, I generally just leave it on the table for a long time. So personally, storage solutions, official storage solutions, have never really floated my boat. I've never really been interested in those. Fortella is actually something that I've been using a lot with Frosthaven. Didn't use it with the original Gloomhaven, but did use it with Frosthaven and have been using it with Frosthaven, and I love it. I think it is great. It really speeds up some of the wordy sections, particularly in Frosthaven, because there's so many events and section book bits, and it just kind of keeps you a little bit more engaged in the story, and it kind of just, it works really well on stream as well. As I'm streaming and we have it playing when those sections happen, so it just really kind of gets everybody engaged, and it kind of turns what can be sometimes a little bit of a cumbersome, kind of tiring part of the game when you look down and you've got massive amounts of dialogue or bits to read from the book, actually makes them quite fun. So I really like Fortella. I'm not quite sure as to what level, you know, Fortella will be as useful in second edition, because of course, you know, Frosthaven has a lot of text. Gloomhaven did have a lot of text, but it wasn't like crazy amounts. But I still feel like this is good value for those of you who really like to get a bit more immersed and hate reading, like me. I don't like reading loads and loads of text. So the second edition folded space organizer, like I said, I'm not interested in that. Personally, I do my own thing, but I do think this is fairly good value for an organizer, actually, at only $40. It's pretty good. Second printing of Frosthaven, don't need that. Solo scenarios for Frosthaven, don't need that. I have all of those. The Play Surface books. This is a really interesting one. I've thought about this one, and personally, I feel like it's just not going to be for me. If this was included in the game as a standardized item, or if perhaps this came out when I was just starting my Frosthaven playthrough, I think there'd be more of an argument there for me. But because I'm midway through, and by the time I get this, I'm probably going to be quite far on, it's really only going to be a viable choice for me if I was to do a second playthrough, which I may well do a Frosthaven, but at the moment I'm kind of right in the thick of it, and I cannot see a situation down the line where I would love to play through it again, because unlike Gloomhaven, which I think is a little bit kind of, it can be quite whippy in terms of your playtime, get through multiple scenarios a bit quicker. Frosthaven does have those long sections of doing outpost phases, lots of stuff going on, which is very enjoyable, but does make the game longer. So it is just a longer game in general, which means that repeat plays are probably less likely. Also, my fingers are still crossed for a digital version of Frosthaven at some point, so I'm kind of putting my eggs in that basket and not really getting anything to do with Frosthaven here. So the rest of this Frosthaven stuff, not for me, not something that I want. Miniatures. Miniatures are a really interesting one. I'm completely passing on all miniatures in this campaign for two reasons, really. The first reason being the very long lead time on them actually being shipped. Make sure that you actually go down and check the shipping schedule stuff down if you are considering miniatures, and make sure that it makes sense for you. For me, I'm not willing to wait an additional year after I've already got my second edition to even, you know, get the miniatures and then start playing. It's just not going to fit into my personal timeframes of when I'm receiving the new games and when I'm going to be playing them. It just doesn't work out. So for me, the miniatures, I'm just going to completely leave out. This will be something that if you enjoy painting and if you want maybe extra miniatures, not just for Gloomhaven, but maybe you play, you know, D&D or other role-playing games in which you can get some really good use out of this, because a lot of people, hobby painters, like to see this as, you know, their main hobby, and you can get like a price per hour type thing or entertainment per hour type value from this type of thing, and it doesn't really bother that you might have to wait a few years. So, but for me, I'm completely skipping over anything to do with miniatures in this campaign. And the last but not least thing that I have been thinking about is Forgotten Circles. This is the revised first edition, which means that it will have the additional changes to the class in there. The Diviner will be the updated version of that, which is really good. I have the first edition, which has got the old changes. To me, paying $30 basically just to get one character does seem a bit steep. But like for me, it's kind of like for the good of the channel that I'll be doing this. So I'll see that very much as an investment. I wish it wasn't quite as... Yeah, I wish it wasn't quite as expensive, or we had the option to just get the Diviner stuff. But no, we don't. So it's interesting that this was also added quite late on in the campaign as well, from the request of everybody as well, because it wasn't originally included. So good to see that they did actually add that. But that's everything to do with the campaign. We've got 24 hours left to go. We're on the last kind of hurdle here, you know, the last sprint as we go into the end. If you have a look at the actual kind of overall, what has been going on, so they're up at 4.5 million at the moment. That's gone up quite a bit, I think, in the last kind of 24 hours, as of course all of those reminder emails go out to people. But yeah, that is basically what I'm backing. Let me know down in the comments below what you are backing, if you're backing anything at all. I imagine that a lot of you are going to say that you're getting buttons and bugs, but I'd be really interested to see what you guys are all going for. And yeah, there'll be a lot more kind of this value of this campaign will go much higher, I'm sure. And obviously this is a very pledge manager heavy campaign as well, so we can expect people like me who are actually just putting the dollar in and waiting to see exactly what it is that they want later on. But apart from that, thank you all so much for watching. Really appreciate you guys for watching. I will catch you in the next video. Bye.
I think still, yeah.
That's the blessing from Cowhead. That's the blessing from...
Isaac, at this point, can we get your approval to add an additional attack modifier deck for allies in the digital version?